to be a good angel investor, you have to be comfortable with losing money. It's not necessarily a distraction, it's an amplifier of the core product and the value proposition. I'm going to be on the phone or, over email with all the other groups I just mentioned. Hey, let's fund this company. You have to figure out how to either pull in capital from out of the state or risk losing some of these companies that you funded in state to out of state funders.
Welcome to the Diligent Observer, where we help angel investors see what most miss. I'm your host, Andrew, and every week we explore what works, what doesn't, and why through conversations with experienced startup investors and operators. My guest today is Paul Nolde, President and CEO of 757 Collab and Executive Director of 757 Angels, a Hampton Roads, Virginia-based angel group. Now, Paul has worn just about every hat there is to wear in early stage finance, from banking and family office work to venture capital and now ecosystem building. In this episode, we dig into the rise of dual-use startups, bridging commercial technology into defense and government work, how AI is reshaping the day-to-day of actually running an angel network, and his market map of the startup ecosystem across the Commonwealth of Virginia. I hope you enjoy learning from Paul as much as I did. Paul, thank you for being with me today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
So Paul, I got to start where I love to start, which is, what are you excited about right now?
I'd say there's two things I'm excited about. One is just I'd say the rise of dual use companies coming through our deal funnel, which is probably no different than many angel groups at the current time. And I say I'm excited about that because I've been doing this for a while, and 5 years ago, really early stage venture didn't really touch too much the GovCon and government tech, and so now you start to see an embracement, embracing of that. I think it's no surprise that Andreessen Horowitz, moved their first office or opened up their first office out of Silicon Valley in DC. And so, what's compelling about this is the extent to which you can effectively translate at a scale that venture funding demands this move from the commercial sector to the government sector. And it's an and, not an either or proposition. And so how is that going to flesh out? Equally compelling is the opposite. So if you're currently a company that's servicing the government and you're trying to I'd say supplement that or get into the commercial side, how is that going to look? So I just think that's an interesting time in our investing ethos. And then the second one is just, and this is going to sound cliched, but it's true. It's just the rise of AI for angel groups and what it means for the management of an angel group and the diligencing of companies coming through the funnel. So I'm not talking about AI-centric companies. I'm talking about the impact of AI on the overall operating efficiency and burden of an angel network or an angel group or even early stage funds for that matter. So those are the things that are getting me excited.
Okay, so I want to hit more on both of those. Let's start with the AI for angel groups. And maybe before we get to the excitement there, give me a quick overview on the 757 Angels and the Collab ecosystem that you are deeply a part of today. Walk me through maybe the quick story and background, just so I and our audience have a good understanding of your context.
Absolutely. So my predecessor, Monique Adams, founded and started 757 Angels just over 10 years ago in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. That's in the kind of eastern part of the state. Historically, it hadn't really been seen as an entrepreneurial ecosystem center. Heavy government contracting, world's largest naval bases there, a lot of military. So anyway, she started it and with the backing of some prominent business leaders. And it's a typical, even to this day, it's a typical angel network, right? So member built up of members paying annual dues and and then a board that helps screen down or down select companies to present to the members. And so, through time and space, 757 Angels actually grew to a point and was active enough to be ranked by the ACA as one of the most active angel networks in the country, which is wild to think about given it's Hampton Roads. But to her credit and to that member's credit, that happened. COVID hit. Obviously, it really took a toll on a lot of in-person angel groups like ours. And so we've been, kind of reconciling, okay, how do we transition even now to a more engaging, and compelling platform that'll attract members. We've had to recalibrate some of our expectations, but today our angel networks kind of fluctuates between 30 and 40 members, and we have a bi-monthly, so every other month we do a virtual pitch to the membership, and we're pretty active so far with this kind of new model that we started at the beginning of the year, and so we have an affiliated venture hub called 757 Collab that I also run. That has an incubator, an accelerator, and a couple accelerators, and as we'll talk about, I'm sure, touch on later, it's tough to separate angel investing from ecosystem building for various reasons. So, it's been a fun journey. I got here about 3 years ago, actually 3 years ago this month, to the region, and have enjoyed it. And so far so good.
Love it. And what's the broad vision? So within the broad kind of 757 ecosystem, because I understand there's several brands here, what's sort of the macro mandate, and then where and how you see the angel community fitting?
So, obviously with an angel network, it's tough to zero in on a de facto investment thesis, but I will say that we were formed to focus on and invest in companies that are headquartered in or have major operations in the state of Virginia or the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so I would say that's probably the biggest kind of litmus test. And then obviously, we're looking for high growth, high scale companies. Usually what we find or what we invest in is, tech centric. Don't do a whole lot of service companies or tech-enabled service companies. We've done some CPG companies before. We do see a lot of medical devices, a lot of health tech, but increasingly more that dual use, advanced manufacturing or supply chain augmentation, drones. See a lot of drone tech. And so from a mandate perspective, if you look at Hampton Roads and then Virginia more broadly, there's a lot of kind of industry clusters throughout the Commonwealth that feed into our deal flow, that are in kind of defense, energy, aerospace, logistics, those kind of four general buckets. We do see a lot of ed tech too. But that's really, since 757 Angels is statewide, or in its focus, that's that angle. And then 757 Collab is more Hampton Roads centric. So, we are aligned with kind of what we call the regional investment playbook, which has these four industry verticals that are really unique to our region. So we, work with, focus really on that.
Yeah, love it. I love it. Okay, so tell me about this excitement with AI. You're running this investor community. You guys are doing cool stuff in defense tech and some ed tech. 30, 40 members. What does this mean to you that you're so excited about the applications in angel ops?
So, angel networks are interesting. I mean, some angel networks, you have the entire membership chipping in to do diligence and to help with diligence. And so whoever's running the angel network is more of, takes on more of an administrator role, herding cats, making sure that the train's on time. Ours is a little bit different. As executive director of 757 Angels, I'm charged with not only making sure the trains run on time and the admin stuff, but also diligencing our deal funnel and really curating the most promising early stage startups around the state to our members. Our board does assist when I bring to them the top 5 companies that I've kind of narrowed down. Then collectively we decide on the top 2 or 3 that'll go before the members. So in our group, it's more focused, I'd say, on one or a couple people than the whole membership in terms of diligence in this whole selection process. So, prior to AI, or prior to the last year where AI has just exploded, I would often engage what I would call venture fellows. And these are individuals. These are students from either seniors or first year grad students from some of the regional universities, and who really were looking to get into this early stage investing industry, or maybe they wanted to do VC when they graduated. And this would have been this was a nice experiential kind of thing they could put on the resume. And that helped. I mean, they did great. That was great. Well, over the last year, I've noticed that AI has gotten to a point where you can do this first diligence run pretty quickly. And it just has changed the game in terms of efficiency. Now, I still have to obviously screen for, I've still got to become enamored with the company. I've still got to get to know the company. I do still the human side of interviews and stuff that feeds into the AI. But
you haven't delegated your interviews to AI yet?
No,
what gives, man? We got to get you up to date.
I know. I almost feel like, I'm sure a lot of people say this. I almost feel like I'm cheating. Like I'm getting paid to do this, but I'm like, okay, where's the human? You could just outsource everything to AI. But the problem with that is, I think we're still not AI is still not quite there, and our members demand. I mean, again, they demand a certain human engagement level. Otherwise, why hire me, right?
Well, this is the essence of what makes an angel network an angel network, is that it is a network of people that get excited about this thing. And we've done primary analysis that shows the community is the single most valuable part of an angel network membership. And so, yeah, the deal flow needs to be done with excellence. But to your point, you pull the people out and now you're just investing. You're not investing in a community.
Right. And I think a counter argument to that, I guess I could come up with is, okay, so let's just say that we outsource all of our diligence to AI. Then that frees up my role to go build the membership base, do the other human elements that are so critical and is the life. I mean, the two aspects for lifeblood of an angel network are the people and the deals, right? So if you can effectively kind of automate the deal side, then you can focus on the members. The thing that's exciting me about this, though, is I have engaged a small group of students at UVA to do a very deep dive and study on the impact of AI on angel networks and angel investing and seed fund investing. They're working on it. We engaged them a few weeks ago. They're going to work on it through the summer and into the fall. And then my hope is that it's going to be that the finished product is going to be a quality such that I'll be talking to the ACA and seeing if we can't publish it or put it out, because I'm stress testing the bounds of, okay, how is it fundamentally changing the operational side of what we do? Again, the diligence and all that. There are some funds, VC funds, obviously, that have been doing quant, selection for a while, but I think in the angel space, it's going to have a profound effect. So I'm excited on what the findings will be. It'll be kind of like a fact versus myth potentially type of study. So we'll see.
Well, sounds like we're going to have to put another podcast on the schedule here in about 6 months to digest that.
I would love
outcome.
that. Yeah, I mean, these are really bright students, and I think it would be really cool to see.
Well, we'll look forward to that. When we find out about it, I'm sure it will get amplified through the Diligent Observer.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about dual use and what you're seeing there, like this transition, as you describe it, over the last several years. First off, define dual use for us, and this is obviously deeply ingrained in the DNA of your community, given the massive presence of naval technology and logistics and all the things happening there in Virginia. Walk me through what this means, and then articulate a little bit more deeply what this transition that you've seen happen over the last few years is.
Yeah, so for us, dual use is at its kind of simplest, a company that's been operating in the private sector, the commercial sector, and is not stopping that, but their technology is now coming to play in the government sector. And for us, we see a lot of defense applications. So the dual use takes on that defense aspect. Think about this as an example. We had a company that came through one of our accelerators, and it was a robotics company that had been doing the way that their robots were kind of changing commercial and industrial painting and applications on surfaces. And so obviously when they came through, and they were not from the area, when they came through our accelerator, you look out the window and there's, again, the world's largest military or largest naval base and massive shipyards. And a lot of these aircraft carriers and battleships are coming in. They're in dry dock to get, upgraded or upfitted or whatever. And they're looking at this going, well, we've got a canvas right here that we could apply our technology on from the commercial sector to the government sector. And so that's what happens. So now you've got, effectively speaking, this other side of the business, which is different in a lot of ways. But if you can lock in a government contract that has predictable cash flow and a predictable model for the next X years, that somewhat allows you to keep the lights on over here and really expand the innovation and the R&D over on the commercial side. Previously, I think investors kind of saw this dual use as maybe a distraction to being laser focused on one go-to-market. I think, through time and space and just the nature of things, that it's not necessarily a distraction, it's an amplifier of the core product and the value proposition. Now, it does mean that you have to diligence it a little differently, because obviously the government side of things is just such a different world than going to market in the commercial side. And there's some subject matter experts that you need on the government side, especially in the military side. There's security protocols. There's all those things that you don't necessarily have on the commercial side. But again, it's to me just all of a sudden you've just expanded your market opportunity pretty greatly. And you look at government contractors, which essentially is what you're talking about for that side of the business. The exits on government contractors are very, very compelling. And so, yeah, it's something that I'm excited to continue to see, that how early stage investing handles dual use companies.
So you guys have you personally, and then your community in general, seems to be pretty good at this. Walk me through, what are those 3 or 4 questions that should be asked when a deal hits my desk that's claiming to be dual use?
Right.
I don't know anything about what that means, or maybe I know a little bit. What are the key questions you would press on that are unique to that claim versus the next?
Maybe the best way to answer it is this. So bear with me a little bit, because I don't know if I have a simple answer. I wish, but we launched a defense technology accelerator in the region earlier this year. It was the first one in our region, and it just made sense, right, given where we are. And so these are companies that are coming. The companies that ultimately were selected, there were 12 of them from around the country that were selected to meet 5 critical needs of the military. So that's number one. What critical need or needs are you fitting, or are you addressing, that is coming down from whatever government entity that is? Because that plays into the contracting and all that. You can diligence and validate the efficacy and the worth of the product or service on the commercial side, just like you would any other deal. But on the government side, you also have to get subject matter expert buy-in. So it's not just meeting a critical need. It's, okay, because there are so many layers of protocols that go into getting a government contract. And again, I'm talking more about defense than anything else because that's what our region is. Um, it's not enough just to say, well, I meet that critical need. Let me, now let's get a contract. No, you've got to have buy-in from subject matter experts on that side. So this defense technology accelerator really took these dual use companies or burgeoning dual use companies through the contracting world to get them their first or sometimes second government contract. There's nuances like, okay, are you a prime contractor with the government, which is a whole different ballgame than being a subcontractor to a prime contractor to the government. So there's layers. Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, just um, so there's from a question standpoint, you just have a few more what I would say hard gating questions that can't be ignored that you have to do to even get to that ultimate contract, the government contract. Whereas on the commercial side, you can kind of live in the gray a little bit. And you can, as I'm sure you've heard a million times, fake it till you make it. Not so much on the government side. It's really tough to fake it till you make it there because they, especially on the military side. I mean, they really want to make sure that what you are claiming to be able to do, you can do. And so there's just that comes with it a little bit more subject matter expert diligence versus just general market diligence, if that makes sense.
A quick note before we continue the conversation. Alongside the Diligent Observer podcast and newsletter, I also run an outsourced operations service specifically built to serve angel networks. My team handles things like initial screening, social media, newsletter prep, platform management, and a whole lot more. The kinds of things that either aren't getting done or shouldn't be done by busy community leaders. If that sounds interesting to you, send me a note. Now, back to it. So this is a question that's nagging at me. Like, how do companies end up going the dual use route in your experience? Is it typically like I have an idea, I want to build, robots to solve some problem for shipping, and then I'm focused on that, and then I meet somebody that it comes from a government contracting background, and they're like, hey, by the way, this would probably be interesting? Or is it more strategic, like we're going to do this thing and we're going to deploy it in both cases, or the inverse? Like how does the typical story go?
I think it's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer to that. I mean, because I guess, let's take that same robotics company, right? That I was talking about earlier, that commercial industrial painting company. What if they hadn't come to Hampton Roads and looked out the window and saw a whole different use case? What if they were in Iowa and maybe they looked at it and outside they were looking at something else? I mean, I last time I checked, Iowa was not near an ocean. So, I guess with all due respect to anybody who's listening from Iowa, but I guess what I'm saying is, I don't really know. I think some of it could be exposure at the right time, at the right place, just by happenstance. It could be that some of the IP that some of these companies leverage. We were looking at one company actually recently through a company that just pitched in our last round actually for some Bob Seven Angels that got their technology from the Air Force. It had been tested, validated, used at the Air Force, and then they had the exclusive on that. And then they were essentially taking that and applying it to some use cases in emergency response systems. And so that's the other way around, right? That's still dual use, but on a kind of the other way. And there was a clear, I think, vision of the founders of that company to say, okay, we're gonna do it this way. I think too, it could be that there's just the opportunity aspect. So if I'm a founder right now who's got a technology that is working in the commercial side, and I'm looking at the news going, well, look at how much money is being pumped into, and again, I keep coming back to defense, but again, that's kind of the world I'm living in right now. Why wouldn't you maybe look at grabbing some of those dollars? And yes, it's a little painful up front to go through the process of getting a contract, but once you're in and once you've gone through it, then it's like with anything, it gets easier, and then the payoff is better. So I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, I don't think maybe some founders go in with the intent to be dual use, but I also my concern too is dual use becomes almost as cliched as AI or anything else, right? So, how many company? I mean, every company says they're AI. Are they really AI companies? Are they not? Dual use, kind of the same thing. So,
Well, it's just an interesting category to me because, I mean, first principles, right? We're talking about taking something that's been developed for one application and putting it into another application. Like, this fundamental thing happens all the time in multiple industries all over the place every day. It's just this specific,
right.
the line between government and not government is a pretty significant one. And so it's got its own definition, so to speak, which is just fun to think about. Okay, so Paul, I want to hear more about your journey and some of your unique perspective, because you have a really cool journey, which is banking to venture to community management and a whole bunch of things in between. I'd love to hear maybe just a quick flyby of your journey and like key moments in your story. And then I'd love to ask a couple questions on what it means to be a good angel investor in your opinion, given that background.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, when I was coming through in college, when I was in college, I mean, the entrepreneurism and investing, venture investing and angel investing, I mean, obviously it was around, but you didn't really talk about it. I mean, I went to school and people were becoming doctors, lawyers, and I think, foreign affairs major and got into banking. Like, you just just wasn't a thing. And you certainly didn't have entrepreneurship minors or majors like you do now. So, enjoyed banking. I was not in investment banking. I was in retail banking and went to some group banking stuff, and then did some other things in banking. But really, what kind of stoked my desire to leave banking and get into more of this early stage investing space is, I don't know why or how this really happened, but when I was in banking, I had in Richmond, and I still live in Richmond, I just had a lot of people that I was working in wealth management. And so a lot of clients obviously created their wealth through selling a company or what have you. And for whatever reason, I started to have some entrepreneurs in the area reach out and say, "Hey, can you take a look? I want to raise money from investors. Can you take a look at this business plan and all that?" And being a banker, obviously that was somebody you went to. So I started moonlighting doing that. I fell in love. I mean, I'd come home every night and just immerse myself in angel investing. I mean, I taught myself, what does it even mean? Certainly didn't teach myself how to angel invest. I comment for later on, but I don't believe you can just teach that in school. But in any case, through time and space, got to a point where my closest friend ended up selling his company at an early age and created multi-generational wealth. But he was like the type of founder every investor would love to invest in. I ended up managing for a brief amount of time his family office and doing those deals. And once you are in that space in I'd say a tier 2 city like Richmond, where there's not too many of us doing it, you just see everything. It all comes to you. And so the exposure to this world and the experience in it really was a quick learning curve. And then I ended up I'd like to say that I had some grand plan. I didn't. It was just all about, as I say, is I was at the right place at the right time and knew the right people. Basically, there was no other thing to it. It was your network. It's your classic building a network, building a brand for yourself. And when the time and the opportunities came, I was there to take advantage of them, and hopefully, did so in a manner that continued to enhance, my network. So, what I did find is, even if you look at this, if my passion is on the investing side, but because of the stage at which I was investing and the networks that I had, as this term acceleration started to become big over the last decade or so, 12, 14 years, it was hard to separate that from angel investing and so early stage investing. So I found that I had opportunities that were presented to me to go and run an accelerator or go and run a venture hub, and so the lines kind of blended there. And really, that's where I kind of am today. I mean, what I'm doing today is probably the culmination of just a lot of that experience coming all under one roof. And and so again, I think you mentioned what is a good angel investor, what makes a good angel investor. I think fundamentally you have to know what type of angel investor you are to even begin to answer that question. Are you an absolute return minded investor where you don't care where the deal is, you just are looking at the return and the exit potential, which is fine. No harm in that. Exit is not a bad 4-letter word. Uh, or are you an investor who does obviously want a return on their investment and is focused on, to some degree, absolute return, but you also want to catalyze your local entrepreneurial ecosystem for more of the impact side of things? I'm not going to call it impact investing. I used to teach that at UVA, and I that gets thrown around a lot. But I guess what I'll say is there is some altruism there where you're almost willing to take a flyer on a company that's in your own backyard that you probably wouldn't take otherwise, because it's in your own backyard, and you want to see where you live thrive from an entrepreneurial ecosystem standpoint. So I think you just have to reconcile that. And believe me, with 757 Angels, we have members who sit on both sides and somewhere in between. It makes it really tough then to run an angel network and deliver companies that promise the absolute return or the returns, but also sometimes, maybe wouldn't have gotten through to the end, but for the fact that they're kind of in our own backyard. So I think you have to reconcile that internally to some extent.
Paul, this is so fun. And this is one of the things I love about angel investing, particularly angel networks, is that the definition is kind of a mess. Like, if you say you're an angel investor, you kind of are, because the definition is so flexible. Obviously, you have to have capital and be deploying that in some way, but the categories are pretty wide. And I certainly think it creates confusion in a lot of cases. But this core question of, what am I doing here? What is my plan? What kind of investor am I? What am I trying to accomplish? Defining that for oneself is just so essential, because there's an innumerable amount of opportunities to just get pulled into, and you can show up to these meetings and find interesting deals. It's just a question of if that's a good fit for you. Yeah. Each individual has to make that call, and that's part of what makes angel investing so fun. And running a community is so difficult because there's no entity that's aggregating all of this around a specific plan, objective. Here's our points. Like, it's very messy and beautiful.
And having a risk tolerance. I mean, there are a lot of angel investors that say they're angel investors, yet they're going to be the first ones to, call you up and complain because they lost money on a deal. And I'm kind of like, well, you knew that the risk coming in. Like, nobody likes to lose money, but you have to be willing to lose. That's another thing. To be a good angel investor, you have to be comfortable with losing money. You should expect to lose money as an angel investor. But at the same time, if you've done your asset allocation right and you've diversified your portfolio and you've invested in more than 5 companies, and you've tried to build a de facto portfolio, then those are really the angel investors that are going to succeed. And it's not about how much you put in the deal. I think that's a common misconception. People think that they might have to put in a minimum of 25,000 into each deal or whatever. All that does is just juice your returns at the back end, right? So we have members who are investing in a multitude of deals, $5,000 here, $10,000 there. They're every bit as an angel investor as anybody else. So it just is a perspective, and you just being aware of how you're deploying your discretionary assets and how much of that is an allocation of your overall alternative assets, and again, what your internal investment thesis is.
Love it. Paul, I want to ask you more about the Richmond ecosystem and maybe in Norfolk as well, but tell me more about this place. Like, walk me through Paul's mental map of who's doing great work locally in the startup world. Obviously, 757 Collab being the best place to go. Around that, you've been a part of this community forever. You know everybody, like you said. So who else is doing cool work that we should know about?
So, gosh, I mean, I will say the Commonwealth of Virginia has I think, a pretty strong angel network kind of syndicate. So you've got Commonwealth Angels out in kind of the Roanoke, Blacksburg area, western part of the state where Virginia Tech is. You've got Shenandoah Valley Angels, kind of where the northwestern part of the state where James Madison University is. You've got a whole host of angel networks in kind of Northern Virginia, DC. Some that are less known, others that are focused on maybe just one industry segment, like Meta Angels is strictly medical. They invest in medical and health tech. And in Richmond, well, you've got in Charlottesville, or University of Virginia is, that's just up the road from Richmond. You've got a couple angel groups there. You've got Charlottesville Angel Network and Cab Angels are kind of the two biggest ones. Cab Angels is more aligned to UVA alumni. In Richmond, it's interesting. Richmond it's an interesting city. You've got a lot of multi-generational wealth.
Interesting is a special word. It
Yeah,
can mean a lot of things.
And I'll say this because I've said it many. I mean, it's where I live and I love Richmond, but we have a lot of multi-generational wealth here, a ton of money, but it's in more risk preservation mode, in my opinion. And so you do see angels investing. Don't get me wrong, but the angels who are investing are not necessarily coming together more formally like you would think in a de facto angel network. It just hasn't been the case, and so it's a little tougher. I think technically Richmond is a market of Venture South. Another massive, successful, top 10 angel network based in the Southeast, across the Southeast. We were actually a market of theirs for a while, and I think very highly of Venture South. So shout out to them. Yeah, Richmond's not as coordinated as one would think. And then you've got, in the eastern part of the state with us, 757 Angels, is the angel network in this region. And then actually in this kind of south side of Virginia, right on the border of North Carolina, near the triangle there, is something called the Launch Place. I've been on their board for years, and that's more of like a seed fund and a pre-seed fund. So lots of, and these are just a few, right? So a healthy.
This is just angel community.
Right. And so if you look at where Richmond and Hampton Roads stand out, Richmond stands out because it's the capital of the Commonwealth. It's capital of the state. So you're going to get a lot of people wanting to just gravitate there for whatever reason. It's got, you see a lot of, the work-life balance here is nice. You've got a lot of stuff to do in the weekends. It's a great city to live in. Hampton Roads it's huge. It's so geographically diverse, population diversity. As I've talked about before, the regional investment playbook for Hampton Roads has outlined defense, aerospace, energy, and logistics as the four main industries. You could also stick healthcare in there for a lot of reasons. But in general, what I would say about specifically Richmond and Hampton Roads, they are complementary in a lot of ways because of the assets that connect and entwine them. There is something called the RVA 757 Connects mega region that's Richmond and Hampton Roads. And as a mega region together, there's a lot of leverage and a lot of impact you can get there. This could be a whole nother podcast because it gets into the economic development side and gets into the Collab side of things. But suffice it to say, there's, I think, a lot of technology that can be harnessed out of Hampton Roads and some of their world-class centers of excellence. But then you've got some very prominent Fortune 500s in Richmond. You don't have a whole lot of Fortune 500s in Hampton Roads. So there's the difference there. And so you've got potentially channel partners that are in Richmond that can engage with the startups. To date, they haven't done a great job of that, but there's always hope. Capital One actually has been a big supporter of the ecosystem for a while. But in any case, two very distinct and different ecosystems for various reasons, but yet complementary in a lot of ways. And so I could say that though about so many of the other regions. I'd say this in general: Virginia is more at a cooperation stage versus a competition stage. So, if you go out to Silicon Valley, deals are seldom shared amongst capital providers because it's so competitive. Well, in Virginia, if I were to get a deal that was really attractive, I'm going to want to invest, but I'm going to be on the phone or, over email with all the other groups I just mentioned. Hey, let's fund this company, right? So there's a little bit of more collegiality, I think, right now, and that's not meant in a pejorative against what's happening out in Silicon Valley. It's just where we are in our history of early stage investing.
When it's fun you mentioned that, my sense from talking to 40 plus angel network leaders on this podcast is that spirit is very common across angel communities. Is there's just this almost by nature of being a minority investor, not typically leading rounds, a loose collaboration of a bunch of individuals that care about this and are showing up because we want to.
Yeah.
There's this unique spirit of collaboration that's different from other capital provider. I mean, venture, right? I've got to return my fund, and it's really hard to be top decile, but everyone wants to be top decile. And so this deal is amazing. It could get me there. It's different incentives, right? And so incentives shape behavior in the angel space. One of the things that I think is so fun is that this collaborative spirit is just so present, and then particularly within local ecosystems like the Commonwealth.
I will say one other thing too, and I left them out, not intentionally, but so, Keiretsu is such a large and well-known angel network, angel group, and they've got chapters all over. And I would suspect that, for them to open up a chapter somewhere, they've got to, they probably have a pretty high bar to do that. And in fact, there is a chapter. It's part of the Mid-Atlantic group that's one of their main people operates out of Richmond. So again, I think that we where we lack is at the later stages of capital. So if we have a pretty robust angel network, we don't have Series A. The Series A is a big gap in the state. I've also heard that in ironically in North Carolina too. So I don't know what it is, but it's just, it's not, which means you have to figure out how to either pull in capital from out of the state or risk losing some of these companies that you funded in state to out of state funders. So.
Yeah, if you're an ecosystem builder listening to this, think about how you can get some Series A, B finance in-house. That would be fun for the ecosystem. So, Paul, what else do you feel like people miss or often misunderstand about the Hampton Roads ecosystem or about dual use? Anything we've talked about today that you feel like people just commonly don't quite get it, even after you've explained it a time or two? Maybe even new members. Like, what are things that are hard to understand?
Don't be intimidated to lean into an angel network and consider starting to invest even at a very small amount into an early stage company. There are angel investors that have been doing it for years and years and that would consider themselves pretty savvy. But as you said earlier, the angel space is very accommodating. It's very collegial. There is, you can almost look at it in some cases like the buddy system. I mean, a new member pairing with a more experienced member. And at the end of the day, no one has the right answer. I mean, you're placing bets. It's legalized betting. So, just because somebody puts in a $200,000 check into a company, that doesn't mean that they have any other inside scoop on if it's going to be successful or not versus the person who puts in 10,000 into a different company. I mean, it really this business takes time. You have to be humble about things. You have to be practical about the realities. And I think just going in eyes wide open as an angel investor, but don't be scared about it. I mean, embrace it. It's fun. You get to see what's coming around the corner. And think about the fact that it usually on average is about a $250,000 commitment to get into a venture fund. With angel investing, you can get in for whatever the group decides. I mean, for us, there is no minimum. The only minimum is what's dictated by the minimum investment amount on the deal terms, and then we'll do an LLC. to accommodate somebody who could put in, if they wanted to, $1. So you just have to, I don't know. You have to take that first check is the hardest one. And then from there, it gets a little easier. So.
Love it. Well, Paul, I think that is a fantastic place to pin it for today. Thank you very much for your time. And I look forward very much to our next one.
Likewise, I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Diligent Observer. I'm your host, Andrew, and if you're an angel investor looking for essential angel intel in 5 minutes every week, I think you'd enjoy my newsletter. I send my best stuff, interesting deals, and more straight to your inbox so you never miss a thing. Subscribe today at thediligentobserver.com.